Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr, and this is episode 103. I'm calling it Empty Nest. And so of course I've been writing fiction now for, I think, a little over a year, almost a year, I think, now, for the podcast. I started as nonfiction and went to fiction, but this episode is going to be nonfiction. I knew that I was just not going to have the time to write properly this week, and it was true, as it turns out. I'm still a little exhausted, even though it's one of those times in your life when it's a fun week, before they came, I was doing housework and stuff like that. But, when they arrived, it's just been visiting and going out to meals and talking and seeing my son's graduation and everything. And yeah, I was exhausted the whole time. It was a lot of fun, though. So, of course, got me thinking. We've got a lot of changes now. My son has now graduated high school. He's already been accepted to college, and he will be going in September, kind of mid-September, as it turns out. They don't start as early as I thought they did, but whatever. So I'm going to have some time with him this summer, and then he's going to be off to college. And, it feels weird. This is one of those moments where, graduation is nice in that way, because we don't have, like a lot of cultures throughout history have had sort of ceremonies for people to sort of signify that they have stepped into adulthood, and graduation from high school is in many ways like the closest we have in American culture specifically. So and of course he's 18, so that was kind of a moment along those same lines. And they do sort of tend to go together, of course. Most kids do graduate right around their 18th birthday, either before, just after. And it feels a little weird, he is my only son. My wife and I only had one child. He was difficult to come by. And, so he's going to be, off on his own. Then he's going to be an adult after that, figuring out his life. It's very exciting for him, and I'm excited for him, certainly. It's going to feel weird, though. And I'm also looking at, just the march of time. We also got to see my young nephew. And, he's a lot taller than he was, a lot bigger, skinny as a rail, because he does nothing but, like, sports. That's, like, his thing. So he's, like, super skinny, but taller. And, my mom and my dad are getting older. My dad has Parkinson's, and he's having more and more difficulty getting around. But I enjoyed our conversations. And so it's gonna feel weird. I mean, the house is already a little on the big side for us anyway. Even when it was the three of us, it was bought originally, but right before we actually had a child, and nor was she pregnant. We didn't know we were going to have a child. We thought that she wouldn't be able to have a child, and then she was, pregnant like about a year later, less than a year later, I think. And so it was, and it's perfect for three people. I mean, well, it's roomy for three people, but for two, it's extra roomy, and for one, it's a little ridiculous. Actually, it's on the other hand, I can't move. I guess I could move somewhere within Washington, but I can't move out of Washington because my son's going to a state school, and if I move out of state, I'm essentially saying, here, have another $60 or $80 or $100,000 for his college tuition, and that's obviously not the smartest move to make. Now, of course, I could move, like I say, I could move somewhere within Washington, but on the other hand, I've been dating the same woman now for over a year. It's kind of pushing a year and a half now, and it's been wonderful. But she's in Portland, and I can't really move to her. She was, and it would be difficult for her to move to my neck of the woods as well. Not impossible, so maybe it will happen, but it's difficult because she has a son still in high school. So if she moves, then that's going to change his high school plans. Although she might be able to work it out so that he would still be able to go to the same school, because she does have an ex-husband, and he spends half the time with him. So maybe maybe that could become the primary residence, and that way her son could stay at the same school. Anyway, but that doesn't matter. Anyway, the idea is that I'm probably going to be in this house alone for some time, and it feels kind of weird. And the interesting thing is, I've noticed, like, my girlfriend and I checked out something called co-housing recently. Like a week ago, there was a conference about it. We didn't go to the conference, but they did this tour of co-housing places, and we went there, and that was kind of interesting. The idea is, like, it's normal housing in most ways, except the living spaces are a little smaller, so that they can have some spaces that are just for the entire group, for the community. It can be places. There's usually like a kitchen with like a dining area for the community to have meals together occasionally, and it's not every day, or it's usually a few times a week at most. Some of them don't even do communal meals at all, but most do. And they also have like other areas where just it's designed for people to be able to easily meet and be more sociable. And they say it's actually good for people who are more introverted, because introverted people tend not to socialize unless it's sort of baked into what they're doing anyway. Like, they're introverts tend to be willing to be sociable, but they have to be like going someplace anyway, or or it's part of their job or whatever. It doesn't naturally happen in their lives because that's just not how they're set up, emotionally. And I'm sort of ambiverted, but I have some introverted things for sure, and as does my girlfriend. And so yeah, the idea of having these spaces and these times where you're just sort of expected to be a little bit sociable, but yet you have as much privacy as you want as well, is pretty nice. But also because the communal areas take up a bit of the space that normally would have the units would be crammed in right on top of each other. Because of that, you have some open spaces, which also tends to make the places look nicer and feel nicer actually as well. But also the living spaces are a little smaller. But what I'm noticing is, in my house, I don't really use the space that much. For example, now that I don't have a television set anymore, I mean, I have a television set. I don't have any cable. I don't have any way to actually access it. I don't really use that room, and in the dining room, well, occasionally I eat at the dining room, but usually I'm at the breakfast bar, which is part of the kitchen. So I use the kitchen and the breakfast bar. Rarely use the dining room. Almost never use the living room. There's not really a whole lot of use for the living room. Upstairs, it's basically my master bedroom and bathroom. And then I go down the hall and I come to my computer room, and I spend a lot of time in my computer room because I'm writing, because I'm streaming. That's what I'm doing. And so I could do a lot of that with like a tiny, less than half of the space. Probably way less than half if I'm, honest. And yeah, so... And now one less of the room, or really two less of the rooms, are going to be used, because when my son leaves, his bedroom will not be used, and the other bathroom is not really going to be used. I guess I might start using it, but yeah. So I've been thinking, it's like at some point I'll probably want a smaller place. The place I have is very nice and all, but don't necessarily need this much room. So lots of changes will be coming along, and so I guess this is sort of the empty nest syndrome, which is why I'm calling it that. But it's an interesting time of life anyway. It's like I'll still be in contact with my son. I don't plan on him being out of contact with me, but he will be in another city going to college, far enough away that we can't just like get together for, even on the weekends, really. I mean, it would have to actually make a trip, because he's going to a college that's, across the state, essentially. It's multiple hours away drive each way. So I can't just, it has to be like a good weekend. You can, you can get there, do something, and come back, but that makes a hell of a long day for not a whole lot of time there. So anyway, so yeah, and then at some point I'm gonna want to live with my girlfriend, but unfortunately, like for the reasons I was kind of going over, it's not the easiest thing to sort of arrange right now. So it's going to be kind of this weird, there's going to be a little bit of a weird limbo time kind of in the middle, where, things are pushing towards change, and yet they won't be able to change. So there's going to be some sort of tension there. But overall, things are going well. I definitely want to try to visit my parents more, especially, and my sister and her family are with them, so visit my sister as well. But especially I think because of my my parents are getting older, and my dad has his Parkinson's, and it's just time. This is the time to be visiting him, because you never know how long it's going to take, but it's one of those things that just kind of keeps progressing. It just gets worse, slowly, but it does. And so unless there's some medical breakthrough real quick, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So I do want to spend more time with them. I really enjoyed. It was nice. We had a couple of good conversations this time, and with my mom as well. So anyway, yeah. So I've been, this whole week it's been a lot of thinking about family, and about time, and about changes, and about how I live my life, how we live our lives in our society. And it's been good, but it's been kind of eye-opening as well. So if you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, CryptoBiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. I've enjoyed this. It was interesting getting away from writing for a little bit, but I am looking forward to jumping back in. I've got a few ideas for stories, and we'll see which one sort of decides to bubble its way to the top. I'll make my decision, of course, either tonight or tomorrow night, so I can get that going for next Sunday. I'm still streaming every day as well, and hope you enjoyed the episode. Again, comments or questions, CryptoBiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter, and thanks for listening. Words and music, copyright 2019, CryptoBiography LLC, all rights reserved.